Greetings, my dear friends and fellow enthusiasts of the criminal mind. Captain Arthur Hastings here, ready to whisk you away once more into the labyrinthine alleys and grand drawing-rooms of London, where the keenest intellect I've ever known, my cherished friend Hercule Poirot, plies his unique trade. I can assure you, the case I'm about to recount is one of the most perplexing and intriguing we have ever faced, a true testament to the brilliance of the little grey cells. Prepare yourselves for a journey into mystery, deceit, and the extraordinary deductions of the incomparable Hercule Poirot. And before we dive in, do consider subscribing to the channel so you won't miss any of our adventures. Now, let's begin with the first chapter of Murder at Blackthorn Manor. Chapter 1. The Stillness at Blackthorn Manor. It was a typically drizzly London morning when the call reached our modest flat at Whitehaven Mansions. A discreet summons delivered by a solemn-faced constable, requesting Monsieur Poirot's immediate presence at Blackthorn Manor, a formidable aristocratic estate nestled just beyond the Hampstead Heath. "A matter of utmost delicacy, Monsieur Poirot," the constable had murmured, his voice hushed with the weight of unspoken tragedy. Poirot, ever immaculate in his precisely pressed suit and meticulously tied bow tie, had merely adjusted a cushion on his armchair before rising. "Ah, Hastings, it appears the little grey cells are to be exercised this dreary day. A manor house, you say. Already one perceives an atmosphere of concealed drama." Blackthorn Manor loomed out of the swirling mist like a Gothic apparition, its ancient stone facade weeping with rain. A vast, sprawling edifice, its windows, numerous and dark, seemed to watch our approach with an unsettling stillness. We were ushered inside by a pale, trembling butler, Mr. Hemmings, whose every movement bespoke utter distraction and grief. The interior was a cavern of wealth, heavy with dark wood, ancestral portraits, and the faint, sweet scent of lilies, a strange counterpoint to the chill of the morning. We were led directly to the victim's study, a grand room dominated by a massive mahogany desk laden with papers. Sir Reginald Cavendish, a man of considerable influence in the city and a noted philanthropist, was found lifeless in his high-backed leather chair. He appeared to have collapsed without any signs of struggle, his head resting against the plush upholstery as if in a deep, eternal slumber. His spectacles lay askew on the desk beside a half-finished crossword puzzle, and a silver letter opener glinted innocently among the scattered documents. Inspector Japp of Scotland Yard was already present, his customary gruffness softened by a rare look of perplexity. "Poirot, old chap," he greeted, running a hand through his thinning hair. "Glad you could make it. This is a rum one. Sir Reginald, dead. No struggle, no forced entry, no obvious weapon. Just gone." Poirot surveyed the scene with an almost imperceptible flick of his wrist, his eyes, sharp and intelligent, missing nothing. He moved with a quiet, cat-like grace, pausing to examine the angle of a fallen pen, the slight displacement of a rug. "And the medical opinion, Inspector?" "Heart attack," initially thought. But the doctor, Dr. Eldridge, is a cautious man, said he'd prefer a full post-mortem. Something about the pallor, a subtle discoloration he wasn't entirely comfortable with. Lady Beatrice Cavendish, Sir Reginald's widow, entered the study then, a vision in black lace, her face a mask of aristocratic sorrow. She was a woman of fragile beauty, her eyes red-rimmed but dry, her composure admirable despite the evident anguish. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, her voice a reedy whisper, "it is unspeakable. My Reginald, so sudden, he was such a strong man." Poirot offered a sympathetic bow. "Madame, my deepest condolences. Perhaps you could tell me, when did you last see Sir Reginald alive?" "Last night after dinner. He retired to his study, as was his custom, to attend to his correspondence. I went to bed shortly after." She wrung her hands. "I heard nothing. Absolutely nothing unusual. Poirot's gaze drifted to a small ornate porcelain figurine on a side table, a shepherdess holding a lamb. He touched it lightly, then turned back to Lady Beatrice. "And was anything at all out of place this morning, madame? Any object missing or moved?" Lady Beatrice looked around the room, her gaze vacant. I wouldn't know. Everything seems as it always is, except—" She paused, her brow furrowed in thought. "Except his favorite first edition. He always kept his first edition of The Moonstone on his desk, right here." She pointed to an empty space. "He cherished that book. It is not there." Japp scoffed. "A missing book, hardly a motive for murder, Poirot." But Poirot merely smiled, a knowing glint in his eyes. "Ah, Inspector, sometimes the smallest missing piece holds the key to the largest puzzle. A cherished first edition. Interesting, n'est-ce pas?" He gave the room a final, comprehensive sweep, his expression unreadable. "This, Hastings, is but the beginning. We have a tapestry to unravel, stitch by careful stitch." The stillness of Blackthorn Manor had yielded its first tantalizing secret. Chapter 2. The Banker's Evasion. The following afternoon, Poirot declared our presence necessary in the bustling heart of the city amidst the towering edifices of high finance. The incessant clamor of horse-drawn carriages and the hurried footsteps of countless clerks filled the air as we navigated the narrow gas-lit streets toward the offices of Mr. Thistlethwaite, Sir Reginald's personal banker. The sun, a rare visitor, cast long, distorted shadows across the wet cobblestones, creating a fleeting, almost theatrical, atmosphere. Mr. Thistlethwaite's office, located on the 5th floor of a formidable building near Threadneedle Street, was a shrine to austere efficiency. Dark, polished wood, heavy ledgers, and the hushed, almost reverential tones of his subordinates created an environment designed to intimidate. Mr. Thistlethwaite himself was a man forged from granite, with a severe countenance, wire-rimmed spectacles perched on a formidable nose, and a perpetually disapproving frown etched upon his face. "Monsieur Poirot," he grunted, not bothering to rise from behind his immense desk. "I understand you're investigating Sir Reginald's untimely demise. A tragedy, certainly, but I fail to see what information I can offer beyond confirming his impeccable financial standing." Poirot, unperturbed by the banker's frigidity, settled into a stiff leather chair, his cane resting neatly beside him. "Ah, but Monsieur Thistlethwaite, even the most impeccable finances can hold secrets. Sir Reginald was a man of great wealth. Were there any recent, shall we say, unusual transactions? Large withdrawals, perhaps, or significant investments that might have caused him concern?" Thistlethwaite adjusted his spectacles, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. "Sir Reginald's affairs were meticulously managed. All withdrawals were duly accounted for. As for investments, he was a shrewd man. His portfolio was robust." "Indeed," Poirot mused, "but even the shrewdest men sometimes venture into uncharted waters. Did Sir Reginald perhaps engage in any speculative ventures recently? Something perhaps outside the purview of his usual conservative investments?" The banker's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "I am not at liberty to discuss the specific details of a client's portfolio, Monsieur Poirot. Confidentiality is paramount." Of course," Poirot replied, his voice silky smooth. "A matter of professional ethics. I comprehend entirely. However, a man's unexpected death often, shall we say, overrides such delicate considerations in the pursuit of justice. Was Sir Reginald, for example, under any financial duress? Debts? Or perhaps an unexpected inheritance?" Thistlethwaite's gaze remained unwavering. "No duress. No significant debts. No recent inheritance that I am aware of. His will, however, was recently updated. Not a month ago, in fact." Hastings scribbled this down. "Updated? That's interesting. What were the changes?" "Again, Confidentiality, Thistlethwaite stated with an air of finality. You would need to consult his solicitor, Mr. Peregrine Finch of Finch & Sons. He handled the revisions. Poirot smiled, a small, knowing upturn of his lips. Ah, Mr. Peregrine Finch, an excellent lead, Monsieur Thistlethwaite. You are most helpful, despite your protestations of secrecy. Tell me, was Sir Reginald prone to fits of temper, or did he have any known adversaries in the financial world? Sir Reginald was respected, Thistlethwaite replied, his voice devoid of warmth. Temper? Perhaps a mild irritation with inefficiency. Adversaries? In the cutthroat world of finance, one always has rivals, but nothing that would lead to this. He gestured vaguely, his discomfort palpable. As we rose to leave, Poirot paused at the office door, his eyes falling upon a small, framed photograph on Thistlethwaite's desk, a picture of a young woman with a striking resemblance to the banker. "A charming daughter, Monsieur Thistlethwaite?" he inquired casually. The banker's face, for the first time, softened fractionally. "My niece, Miss Eleanor Thistlethwaite. She works as an apprentice at an art gallery, a frivolous pursuit if you ask me, but she has a talent." "Indeed," Poirot murmured, his gaze lingering on the photograph for a moment longer than necessary. "A talent for art. Fascinating. Good day, Monsieur Thistlethwaite." Outside, the clamour of the city seemed to mock the banker's carefully constructed facade. "Hastings," Poirot said, adjusting his gloves. "Our granite-faced banker. He knows more than he permits himself to speak. And that updated will... that is a thread worth pulling. The art gallery, too. One must always remember, Hastings, that even the most meticulous of men have private lives, and sometimes those private lives have connections to art." Chapter 3. Whispers from the Wharves. Our next excursion took us to a decidedly less salubrious quarter of London, the sprawling, labyrinthine docklands by the Thames. The air was thick with the tang of salt, coal smoke, and damp earth, a stark contrast to the sterile precision of the financial district. A perpetual grey fog, characteristic of a true London afternoon, clung stubbornly to the warehouses and cobbled lanes, lending an air of conspiratorial secrecy to the very surroundings. The mournful wail of a distant ship's horn pierced the gloom. Poirot, meticulously avoiding puddles, led us through the bustling thoroughfares, past straining dock workers and the calls of street hawkers. He was seeking a certain Silas Croft, a retired merchant seaman and erstwhile purveyor of rare antiquities whom Sir Reginald had, according to a vague entry in an old ledger, once had dealings with. The ledger, discovered amongst some less formal papers at Blackthorn Manor, had offered no explanation for the transactions, merely a series of dates and sums marked Croft Silas, unusual items. We found Silas Croft in a tiny, cluttered shop tucked away down a dark alley, its windows grimy with years of accumulated dust. Inside, the shop was a chaotic wonderland of forgotten treasures, dusty navigation instruments, exotic masks, yellowed maps, and a dizzying array of bric-a-brac from every corner of the globe. The air was heavy with the scent of old wood, spices, and the faint, sweet smell of opium. Silas Croft was a man etched by the sea and time, his face a road map of wrinkles, his eyes a startling shade of pale blue that seemed to hold endless stories. He sported a thick, grizzled beard and wore a patched-up peacoat despite being indoors. "Monsieur Poirot, is it?" he rasped, peering at us over a pile of brass telescopes. "Heard a gentleman of your reputation might be calling. Sir Reginald, eh? A sad business, a very sad business." "You knew Sir Reginald well, Monsieur Croft?" Poirot asked, carefully navigating a stack of ancient scrolls. "Knew him well enough for business," Croft replied, his voice a low rumble. "He had a peculiar taste, Sir Reginald did. Not for your grand paintings or your jewels, mind you. He liked things with a history, things that told a story, even if it was a dark one." "And what sort of unusual items did he acquire from you, Monsieur Croft?" Hastings interjected, eager to glean information. Croft's pale blue eyes narrowed. Kept those to himself mostly. Paid well, always. Never haggled. Just bought what he wanted, and often wanted them sent to a discreet address, not Blackthorn Manor. Poirot's ears pricked up. A discreet address, you say? And what was this address? Ah, now that I couldn't tell you offhand. My records are extensive, Croft said, gesturing vaguely at the chaotic shop. But I recall one particular item, a jade amulet, old, ancient even. Said it was from a forgotten temple in the Far East. Had a strange curse associated with it, some folks said. Sir Reginald was fascinated by it. A curse? Poirot's brow furrowed. And when did he acquire this amulet? About 5 years ago, if my memory serves. A very specific request he made, that one. Sent someone else to pick it up, not him. A young woman, as I recall. Very striking, dark hair, hurried movements. Did you recognize her? Never seen her before or since. Just remembered the urgency in her eyes, and the way she handled that amulet. Almost reverent, but with a touch of fear. Croft shuddered slightly. Don't like to think of it, that amulet. Gave me the shivers, it did. Poirot's gaze drifted to a dark, wooden chest tucked away in a corner, intricately carved with symbols that seemed ancient and menacing. And the discreet address, Monsieur Croft? If you were to remember it, it could be of great import. Croft scratched his beard. Might take some digging. Old papers they are. But if it matters, I'll try. Sir Reginald. He had a secret, I think. Something he wanted hidden. And that amulet, I heard he used to keep it locked away, even from his wife. As we emerged from the gloom of the shop back into the fog-shrouded alley, Poirot's expression was thoughtful. Hastings, a jade amulet, a secret address, and a mysterious woman with dark hair. And the banker mentioned his niece worked at an art gallery. Coincidences, perhaps, or threads, deliberately interwoven, just waiting for my little grey cells to untangle them. The scent of the Thames followed us, carrying with it not just the smell of the sea, but the faint, unsettling whiff of forgotten secrets. Chapter 4. The Artist's Canvas and Contradictions. The following morning dawned with a refreshing clarity, the previous day's fog having lifted to reveal a crisp, bright London sky. Poirot decided our next port of call should be the heart of Chelsea, a district renowned for its artistic community and bohemian charm. We sought out the Galleria Lumina, the art gallery where Miss Eleanor Thistlethwaite, the banker's niece, was employed. The gallery itself was a serene oasis of light and colour, its pristine white walls adorned with vibrant canvases. The air hummed with a quiet elegance, a stark contrast to the gritty atmosphere of the wharves. Miss Eleanor Thistlethwaite was a revelation, striking as Silas Croft had described, with dark, intelligent eyes and an elegant, if slightly austere, beauty. She possessed a keen, artistic sensibility, evident in her carefully chosen attire and the way she moved among the artworks. Poirot approached her with his customary courtesy, introducing himself and me. Mademoiselle Thistlethwaite, my apologies for intruding upon your artistic sanctuary. We are investigating the unfortunate demise of Sir Reginald Cavendish, and your uncle, Monsieur Thistlethwaite, mentioned you might have known him. Eleanor's composure, though considerable, wavered slightly. Sir Reginald was a patron of the arts, Monsieur Poirot. He frequented the gallery, yes. He had a discerning eye, though his tastes were, at times, rather eclectic. Her gaze drifted to a striking abstract piece. Eclectic, you say? Poirot prompted gently. Could you elaborate, mademoiselle? He enjoyed pieces with a certain mystique, she explained, her voice low and cultured. Not always popular or conventional. He once purchased a rather unsettling piece from an obscure symbolist painter, a depiction of a shrouded figure by a moonlit lake. He seemed particularly drawn to its enigmatic quality. And did he ever acquire anything unusual from you? Hastings blurted out, recalling Croft's description of the jade amulet. Perhaps a piece of jewelry or a historical artifact, not strictly a painting. Eleanor looked momentarily startled. No, Captain Hastings. The Galleria Lumina deals exclusively in fine art, paintings, sculptures, and the like. We do not dabble in antiquities or jewelry. Her response was firm, perhaps too firm. Poirot, observing her closely, noted the subtle tension in her hands. Yet, mademoiselle, you yourself possess a certain, how do you say, an appreciation for the esoteric. Your uncle mentioned your talent for art. Do you yourself paint? A faint blush touched her cheeks. I do, occasionally. My own work is more conceptual. I find inspiration in the symbolism of ancient cultures, the hidden meanings within myths. Poirot's eyes twinkled. Ah, symbolism. And have you, perhaps, ever assisted Sir Reginald in any private acquisitions? Not for the gallery, of course, but for his personal collection. Perhaps items acquired through a less conventional channel. Eleanor's gaze dropped, her fingers fiddling with a silver pendant at her throat. Sir Reginald was a client. I sometimes offered my opinion, but I was not involved in any personal transactions outside the gallery. I assure you. Her voice was now strained. And the jade amulet, mademoiselle? Poirot asked, his voice suddenly sharp, his eyes fixed on hers. Do you recall assisting Sir Reginald in acquiring such an item, say 5 years ago? Eleanor flinched visibly, her face paling. The silver pendant slipped from her fingers and clattered onto the polished floor. She bent quickly to retrieve it, her movements unusually clumsy. I have no knowledge of any jade amulet, Monsieur Poirot. I'm an art apprentice, not a smuggler of ancient relics. Her voice was thin, but her eyes held a defiant glint. Indeed, Poirot said, picking up the pendant she had dropped. It was a small silver scarab beetle, beautifully crafted. A lovely piece. Egyptian, perhaps. Symbolic of rebirth, if I'm not mistaken. He handed it back to her, his gaze unwavering. One must always be careful, mademoiselle, of what one carries and what one denies. A little scarab can hold a great secret, just as a denial can reveal a hidden truth. As we left the gallery, the bright Chelsea sunlight felt almost oppressive. Hastings, Poirot said, his pace unhurried. Our artistic Mademoiselle Thistlethwaite protests too much. Her denial of the amulet, the tremor in her hand, the sudden pallor. She knows of it, and her uncle's initial evasiveness about Sir Reginald's speculative ventures now takes on a new light. These are not merely individual threads, Hastings. They are beginning to intertwine, forming a pattern that, though still obscure, suggests a deeper, more complicated design than mere financial impropriety. Chapter 5. The Passenger's Disappearance. The late afternoon found us amidst the controlled chaos of Victoria Station, its vast iron and glass roof arching overhead like a colossal cathedral. The station was a symphony of sounds, the hiss of steam, the clatter of luggage, the urgent cries of porters, and the murmur of countless conversations. Sunlight, filtered through the grimy glass, cast shifting patterns of light and shadow on the bustling platforms. Poirot had received an anonymous tip, a cryptic note delivered by special messenger, suggesting we seek out a certain ticket agent regarding Sir Reginald. The note directed us to Mr. Horace Pinter, a veteran ticket agent with a walrus moustache and a perpetually harried expression, whose booth was tucked away near the Brighton Line departure gates. Pinter, initially reluctant and clearly overwhelmed by the rush, finally conceded to speak with Poirot after a discreet display of a Scotland Yard identification and a promise of minimal disruption. Sir Reginald Cavendish, you say? Pinter huffed, wiping his brow with a handkerchief. Knew him by sight, always travelled first class, had his own carriage sometimes for longer journeys. A very particular gentleman. Did you see Sir Reginald or anyone connected to him in the days leading up to his unfortunate demise, Monsieur Pinter? Poirot asked, his voice cutting through the din. Pinter scratched his head. Well now, he was here, yes. 2 days before, I think. Came to purchase a rather unusual ticket. A single for Liverpool, departing, well, it was late in the evening. Very unusual for him to take a late train. And was he alone? No, not entirely. He was accompanied by a lady. Young, stylish, kept her face mostly hidden by a veil, but I caught a glimpse. Dark hair, fine features. She seemed quite agitated, I remember. And he, Sir Reginald, he was trying to calm her. Poirot's eyes narrowed. Dark hair. Could you describe her further? She carried a small, rather ornate travelling case. Pinter mused, trying to recall details amidst the station's hubbub. And she seemed nervous, kept looking over her shoulder. Sir Reginald bought her the ticket. Said something about an urgent matter, best handled with discretion. And did she board the train? Hastings inquired, a sense of urgency building. Yes, she did. Sir Reginald saw her off, stood on the platform until the train pulled away. Looked quite relieved, he did, when it was gone. Pinter shrugged. Thought nothing of it at the time. Just a husband seeing off his wife or some such thing. But now, with the news, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? Indeed it does, Poirot murmured. And do you recall the name under which this ticket was issued, Monsieur Pinter? Pinter consulted a hefty ledger beneath his counter. Ah, here it is. Mrs. Agnes Dubois. A single ticket to Liverpool, booked by Sir Reginald Cavendish. Agnes Dubois. The name resonated with a faint familiarity. Poirot thanked Pinter, then led us away from the platform, his expression deeply contemplative. The anonymous tip had borne fruit, indeed. Liverpool, Hastings, a city of ships, of departures, and a veiled woman with dark hair, matching the description of the woman Silas Croft recalled collecting the amulet, and the name, Agnes Dubois. Where have I heard that before? Hastings frowned, racking his brain. Dubois. Dubois? Monsieur Dubois, the art dealer Monsieur Thistlethwaite mentioned who frequented the Galleria Lumina. Perhaps a relation. Poirot snapped his fingers, a rare gesture for him. Exactement, mon ami. The art dealer. This web it grows tighter. A woman, possibly Eleanor Thistlethwaite, using an alias, leaving London hastily after a clandestine meeting with Sir Reginald. Why the urgency? Why the disguise? And what precisely did she carry in that ornate travelling case? The image of the bustling train station, a place of transient connections and hurried goodbyes, now seemed to hold a darker implication. It was a place where one could simply disappear, leaving behind only questions and a single purchased ticket. Poirot stood still for a moment, absorbing the atmosphere, his mind undoubtedly piecing together the movements of this mysterious Mrs. Agnes Dubois, who vanished like smoke on the wind. Chapter 6. A confluence of clues. A few days later, Poirot summoned me to a quiet, secluded garden within a forgotten London square, a verdant sanctuary hidden behind high brick walls near Bloomsbury. The air was cool and still, scented with damp earth and late-blooming roses. It was a deliberate choice, he explained, for contemplation, away from the clamour of the city, to allow the little grey cells to organize the disparate facts we had accumulated. Hastings, he began, gesturing for me to sit on an ancient stone bench. The pieces are all here. They simply require arranging with precision. We have a victim, Sir Reginald Cavendish, found lifeless in his study. No sign of struggle, a missing first edition of the Moonstone, and a peculiar discoloration noted by the doctor. He paced slowly among the rose bushes, his hands clasped behind his back. Then we have the updated will, a detail grudgingly supplied by the austere Mr. Thistlethwaite. His niece, Miss Eleanor Thistlethwaite, an art apprentice with eclectic tastes and a nervous disposition when questioned about a jade amulet and an alias, Agnes Dubois. She was seen receiving an unusual item 5 years ago from Silas Croft, the purveyor of antiquities by the docks, who also mentioned a discreet address. And finally, we have Eleanor Thistlethwaite, or rather Mrs. Agnes Dubois, boarding a late train to Liverpool, seen off by Sir Reginald himself 2 days before his death. "So, Eleanor Thistlethwaite is our killer," I ventured, feeling a jolt of excitement. "She had a motive, perhaps related to the amulet or the updated will, and she fled." Poirot paused, a finger to his lips. "Not so fast, mon ami. One must not leap to conclusions. The evidence suggests a connection, yes, but not necessarily guilt for the murder. Why would she flee before the murder if she intended to commit it? And why would Sir Reginald see her off if she were his intended assailant?" "Then what is your theory?" I asked, frustrated by the intricacy. "Consider the jade amulet, Hastings. Croft mentioned a curse. He also said Sir Reginald kept it locked away in the missing first edition of The Moonstone, a novel centered around a cursed Indian diamond. Is this mere coincidence?" He stopped before a particularly vigorous rose bush, examining a dewdrop on a petal. The discoloration on Sir Reginald's skin, the doctor's unease. What if the cause of death was not a conventional weapon, but something subtle, something almost invisible? Something, perhaps, contained within or connected to an antique item. A poison, perhaps, that leaves an unusual mark? "But the amulet was acquired 5 years ago," I argued. "Why would it be used now?" But what if the amulet was not the weapon itself, but a key, or something that had to be activated? Poirot smiled faintly. "And the updated will. Mr. Peregrine Finch, the solicitor, will be able to shed light on that, but I suspect it pertains to Eleanor Thistlethwaite. Perhaps Sir Reginald, aware of something, altered his will to protect her or to implicate someone else." "So you believe Eleanor is involved, but not the murderer?" "I believe she was entangled in something dangerous, Hastings. Something Sir Reginald was trying to help her escape. The discreet address Croft mentioned. I've had a discreet inquiry made. It leads to a small, private vault in a lesser-known bank, under the name of A. Dubois. And a search warrant was obtained, purely on a hunch. Inside, we found not the jade amulet, but a small, exquisitely carved wooden box. Empty. Empty. Precisely. Which means its contents, whatever they were, are now elsewhere. Possibly with our Mrs. Agnes Dubois on a train to Liverpool, or wherever she journeyed from there. And the missing first edition of The Moonstone? It has been recovered, not from a killer, but from a pawn shop in Soho. It was pawned by Mr. Hemmings, the butler, the morning after Sir Reginald's death." My jaw dropped. Mr. Hemmings, the grieving butler. A man with a gambling problem, Hastings, as a discreet inquiry revealed. He took the book not as a clue, but for its monetary value, hoping to quickly clear a debt. A foolish, desperate act, but not one of murder. Poirot tapped his forehead. The murderer, Hastings, is a meticulous individual. Someone who would leave no obvious trace. Someone who understands the subtle art of concealment. Someone who knew Sir Reginald well, and someone who had a powerful motive, perhaps even more than financial gain, for removing him from the game. The air in the garden grew heavy with the weight of Poirot's words. The pieces were indeed coming together like a complex mosaic, revealing a grim picture beneath the placid surface of Blackthorn Manor. Chapter 7. The Revelation at Blackthorn Manor. The setting for Poirot's final denouement was, fittingly, the very drawing-room of Blackthorn Manor where the tragedy had first unfolded. The room, once a scene of quiet sorrow, now buzzed with a nervous energy as the main players, summoned by Poirot's cryptic invitations, gathered. Lady Beatrice, her sorrow now tinged with an anxious curiosity. Mr. Thistlethwaite, his granite face betraying a hint of trepidation. Eleanor Thistlethwaite, pale but composed, having returned from Liverpool by Poirot's request, and Mr. Peregrine Finch, the solicitor, a meek man clutching his briefcase as if it were a shield. Even Inspector Japp was present, his skepticism still present but now laced with an expectant air. Poirot stood before the ornate fireplace, a small polished wooden box, the one from the discreet vault, on the mantelpiece beside him. "Mesdames, Messieurs," he began, his voice calm yet carrying an undeniable authority. "We are here to bring closure to the tragic death of Sir Reginald Cavendish." He methodically recounted our investigation, the banker's evasions, the antiquarian's whispers, the artist's denials, and the train agent's observations. He explained Mr. Hemming's foolish theft of the book, clearing him of any involvement in the murder. "The key, mes amis," Poirot declared, "lies not in the obvious, but in the subtle. The missing first edition, the jade amulet, the discreet address, the updated will, and Mademoiselle Thistlethwaite's hurried departure. These are not disparate threads, but parts of a single, carefully constructed deception." He turned to Eleanor. "Mademoiselle Thistlethwaite, you denied knowledge of the jade amulet. Yet 5 years ago you collected it for Sir Reginald from Silas Croft, and 2 days before his death, Sir Reginald saw you off on a train to Liverpool under the alias Agnes Dubois. You were, in fact, delivering a very specific package for him. A package I believe was originally contained within this very box." He tapped the wooden box on the mantelpiece. Eleanor, her face now etched with a mixture of fear and relief, finally broke. "Sir Reginald was protecting me. 5 years ago I was foolish. I fell in with a bad crowd, an occult society that convinced me to procure that amulet, which they claimed held ancient power. Sir Reginald, my uncle's friend, discovered my folly. He bought the amulet from the society to save me from them, but he feared they would return for it. He kept it hidden." She paused, taking a breath. "Recently, I received threats. They found out about the amulet and demanded its return. Sir Reginald, bless his soul, planned to trick them. He updated his will, leaving a substantial sum to a charitable trust linked to the society, under the condition that they would leave me and the amulet alone. But he also crafted a decoy. He asked me to take a replica amulet to Liverpool, where he had arranged for it to be stolen from me by one of his contacts, convincing the society they had retrieved their cursed object. So you were not fleeing, mademoiselle, but enacting a plan to protect yourself and him," Poirot said gently. "And the real amulet?" Eleanor pointed a trembling finger at the mantelpiece. "The real amulet, the jade one, Sir Reginald kept here, in this house. He was planning to dispose of it properly after I had departed. It was kept in that wooden box." "And it is now empty," Poirot finished for her, "because it was taken by the murderer." He turned to Lady Beatrice, his voice hardening. "Lady Beatrice, you claimed to hear nothing unusual that night. You also stated that Sir Reginald's first edition of The Moonstone was missing. A clever touch, n'est-ce pas, to create a red herring that deflected from the true missing item, the amulet itself." Lady Beatrice stiffened, her eyes wide with a sudden, dawning terror. "Sir Reginald, you knew, was not just protecting Eleanor from an occult society, but from a greater danger closer to home," Poirot continued, his gaze unwavering. "The true contents of his updated will revealed his intention to expose a long-standing embezzlement scheme that had secretly funded your lavish lifestyle, Lady Beatrice, a scheme you shared with your cousin, Monsieur Dubois, the art dealer." Gasps rippled through the room. "You discovered Sir Reginald's plan to dispose of the real amulet. You knew he would be alone in his study. The discoloration on his skin, Dr. Eldridge noted, was consistent with poisoning by a rare plant-derived toxin, administered subtly, perhaps in his evening tea. A toxin he, as a philanthropist with a keen interest in exotic botany, likely had in his private collection, perhaps in a decorative container in his study. You retrieved it, administered it, and then, knowing its true significance, took the jade amulet from its box." "No, it's a lie," Lady Beatrice cried, her composure finally shattering, her face contorted in a mask of desperate denial. "I loved Reginald. I did not touch the amulet. I heard nothing." "You heard nothing because you were the last person to see him alive," Poirot stated calmly. "You needed him gone before he could truly expose you. The missing amulet, the moonstone clue, you planted those to create confusion. You believed the occult society would be blamed, or that Eleanor Thistlethwaite, with her suspicious flight, would be implicated. A very clever plan, madame, but you underestimated the little grey cells. The updated will, the financial irregularities with Monsieur Dubois, your private, desperate desire to maintain your extravagant lifestyle, they all point to you." Lady Beatrice crumpled, her elegant facade collapsing into a heap of sobs. Inspector Japp, a look of profound astonishment on his face, stepped forward. "Lady Beatrice Cavendish, I'm arresting you for the murder of Sir Reginald Cavendish." As the room descended into a melee of shocked whispers and police procedure, Poirot merely adjusted his impeccable cuffs. "Ah, Hastings," he murmured, a rare sigh escaping him. "Another puzzle solved. It is always the human heart, with its depths of greed and desperation, that complicates matters the most." The mystery of Blackthorn Manor had finally yielded its secrets, revealing a truth far darker and more intricate than any curse. Thank you for joining us on this thrilling journey through the shadowy corners of London and the depths of human